And we are live on Social Surge with Fly and Mo, waiting for stuff to go live on the gram.
The delay always gets me.
Right?
I'm getting used to it. Go log in on here too.
There we go. Woohoo!
It's the last Thursday in July.
It is the last Thursday in July. You ain't lying. Oh, it was a bad joke. You liar. That's actually one of my favorite jokes. You liar.
I love it. Wait. Good morning, Regalado Real Estate.
She got me before I could say it.
I can't believe I do because I only have two screens right now because I'm abroad and
in the wilds of Minnesota.
In my mother's office, actually. Chez Fromage has not disappointed, I have to tell you. So besides the power and internet outages rolling across the Twin Cities earlier in the week, which have nothing to do, totally out of everyone's control. But it's been a little bit of a trip. But that's why we were not live on Tuesday morning, is because I was scrambling, figuring out how I was going to get it done.
Internet. I was like, go to Starbucks. I don't think they have internet at Starbucks.
That's not what I said. I just didn't respond. It's like, you have a plan and then reality happens and then you just got to figure it out. But, you just you always figure it out. So, but it's been strange because I do spend most of my time right here on the internet and I haven't been so much on it. And so I feel like I don't know what's going on. Not tapped in.
You're not tapped in. And you haven't gotten your daily fix. All right. So I wrote a post. We were actually going to talk about this on Tuesday.
Yeah.
I wrote a post over this weekend. It was actually on Monday. Mr. Regalado, what the heck, and we once a quarter make plans to have a weekend. We call it a business retreat. But really, it is for tax purposes, it is. But what we do is we take time to write down what we go through what happened the past quarter, right? We review, and then we look at what we want to do for the next quarter, like where we want to be.
Yeah.
And then we reverse engineer how we're going to meet those goals, right? So how many calls is it going to take? How many contacts is it going to take? How many touch points? What are some of the things that we want to do? And it's not just for business. We also have personal goals that we talk about. And I would really love to actually get my kids involved in this, the 18 and the 16-year-old, to start. Because we do, the beginning of the year, we actually talk about like, what are some of the goals that we want to have? And then again, we reverse engineer it. We talk about how that's going to happen.
Right.
I think you have to reverse engineer it. I don't think you can, in just my estimation, I don't think you can say that you want to have a goal and then not have a plan to figure out how the hell to get there.
Yes.
Right. So this is something that we do. And for us, it works. It's also a couples weekend. Like we do a couples massage. We get, pedicures. What the heck had his first pedicure a couple years ago, and he was like, "Wow, this is really nice." I was like, "I know, right?" And so now that's part of our plan, and then we go out and we just enjoy ourselves, which brings us to today's title, which is Mind the Gap, Setting Goals Without Losing Your Mind. And if you haven't had a chance to read The Gap and the Gain, highly recommend. I believe it's by Harding is his last name. I can't think of it right now.
Look it up.
Right? You have the internet at your fingertips. And so anyway,
Dan Sullivan?
What was that?
Dan Sullivan?
Dan Sullivan, yes. And
that's the one.
Harding. There's another guy that writes it.
I'm not sure. We'll have to post it. We'll have to post it
Okay.
after.
Yeah. Well, if you haven't read
Oh,
it,
Dr. Benjamin Hardy. Sorry,
thank
there's
you. Yeah, there we go. If you haven't read it, it talks about how a lot of us have a tendency, and this was the big point for me. Good old Catholic guilt. Just kidding. Um, is the fact that we live in the gap a lot. And the gap is one of the stories I think that was told in there was there's a sales guy. He like doubled his income, but he didn't make his goal. And so instead of looking at the fact that he doubled his income, he was looking at the fact that he missed his goal. And how many of us actually live in that gap, right? We live in the gap. Well, yeah, I tripled my business income, but I missed quadrupling it.
Right.
Okay, but you tripled your income, right? Your business income. And that really stuck with me. And then the other part is, we need to, more look at the gain. Sure, you missed your goal, but what did you gain? What happened, right? And so we really, when we are doing our business planning, that's what we focus on. We focus on the gain, and then we look at, okay, where can we adjust, and where do we need to maybe there's a system or a process that's not working. How are we going to fix it? Or to the point of, do we need to just scrap it, right? I think that's something to be said, that a lot of people try to fix systems that are not fixable, and they're so set in but it's gotta work. It's not working. It's time to scrap it. It's time to do something else. I see that a lot. I see that a lot in my children. Like, hey, this isn't working anymore, right? It's time that maybe we stop trying to do this process here and start doing something else, so we can get to where we need to go.
It's like the difference between, also, it's like a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. And you need to be open and willing to look at those things and objectively, because I think also a lot of times too, when there are systems inside of our business or inside of the way that you're producing content, whatever it is that you're particularly focused on, we get married to those systems. And I see it a lot. I think a lot is happening right now because there's so much changing in technology. The platforms are changing, the way people do business is changing, and it takes a lot of dedicated time and effort to look at something, and sometimes actually dismantling it and pulling back on production or output. That will happen naturally inside of a systems change, and people are very, me personally as well, inside of a systems change, it alters the way you're producing. So when you are doing those things, you can kind of see, short-term dips when really you're working towards long-term gains, right?
Right. And I think that is an important thing to remember, is that you're working towards a larger goal. So yes, the short-term goals help you identify what you need to be doing. But again, if a system is not working in your process, or a process is not working in your system, then you need to take a look at that and go, where is the, what's the word I'm looking for? Where is the blockage, I guess, is the best.
100%.
And is the blockage you? Are you the one that is causing the problems? Because that's
for real though. And it's very humbling, right? Because that is also very difficult. It's just sometimes it's you.
Right. And so then it requires you to, step back, set ego aside, especially when you have a business. Set ego aside and go, okay, what's best for the business?
Yeah.
This isn't best for me. It's what's best for my business. And that's really hard, especially when for me, going from being a solopreneur to having a team and building a scalable business. It's okay, what do I need to step back and stop doing? And the other thing that, Hector and I also take a look at is, what are some of the things that I'm doing that can be that I can create an SOP or a system to bring somebody onto the team and have them do that, right? Do I need to be spending my time doing this, or is it time to send it to somebody else? So for us, we look at it in a couple ways. Is it for my ego to make me look better, or is it for the business?
Yeah.
And stepping back and taking a look at that is really hard sometimes, because of course I want it to be about me. It's always about me. But when you have other people that are involved in your business, you have to realize that, no, it's not about you. It's about what's best for everybody else. So one of the goals that we always look at setting is, how many new clients do we want to bring on? And how are we going to get there? How many people do we need to talk to? How many contacts do we need to make? What kind of content do we need to produce to get people interested? What are we going to be sharing for that time period? So there's a lot more than just talking about, how many clients we want to bring on. We look at the attrition rate. How many clients did we lose this past quarter? Do we have replacements already in place for them? Did we have people that were waiting because we were at capacity, waiting for us to say, hey, we can take new clients on now? And thankfully, when that's happened, I've been able to go on X and said, hey, we just had 2 spots that opened up. If you've been interested in working with us, now's the time to start a discovery call, right? Because I do know what my capacity is at. And I don't ever want to get to a point where clients are not being served the way that they should be served. And again, I think that's something that people fail when they talk about scaling. They're like, I want to get as big as I can. Well, what does that mean? Like, what is the goal? How many clients can you actually handle and still do the job well?
Yeah.
To the level of their expectation. Because I think we see it a lot where people are like, oh yeah, I've talked to, and this is just, I've been doing this a long time. I've talked to social media managers who tell me that they've had like 100 clients. I'm like, how, and it's just you? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, how in the hell are you? Are you sleeping? Are you, what are you doing? Like, this doesn't make any sense to me. So as we're talking about setting intentional goals and we're talking about reverse engineering the process, what does success look like for you?
Right. Because I think that a lot of people, and I see this a lot in the conversations that I have with people about their social media, is that like they have a surface level idea about like what they want and what they think they want without connecting it specifically to the result of reaching that goal, which would be that success. So like, what is the definition of that for you? And then doing exactly what we've just said, which is reverse engineering the actions that you would need to do every day in order to hit that goal for yourself.
Yeah. And how we use, so we obviously, Fly and I talk about systems and processes, and she's learning a lot of our systems and processes. But we use ClickUp, and I highly recommend it. If you've ever used a Kanban board before and you've ever worked with a team, at least the version of ClickUp that we're using has a Kanban board feature. Kanban board is where you put a task in like a little box, and then you assign it to somebody. And as it moves, it goes across the board, and then it gets finished. And it's a visual representation of all the tasks that you have. It's great. It's actually great if it's just a 2-person office, right? Because things can get assigned and you can actually see like nothing gets left behind. Like, oh, hey, we had this task that was supposed to happen. Where did that go? I don't know. Well, if you get into the habit of putting it on the Kanban board and assigning it, even if it's assigning it to yourself, it's a great way to stay consistent and to track your progress, especially on projects. So, as Hector and I were reviewing what happened, we were looking at some of the goals that we didn't make. And instead of, beating ourselves up because we didn't make that goal, we reframe it and you say, what did we learn? What did we learn from this? Right? because if we don't instead of looking at it as a failure, and I'm not trying to be like toxic positive, a positive person, though I think that's kind of bullshit when you tell somebody who's naturally like, yes, Marcy, it is similar to Monday.com. I just think you shouldn't tell somebody who's naturally upbeat and like always looking at the brighter side that they're toxic because they're positive. I was told that. I was like, toxic positive. Well, wow, okay, well, I guess I don't need to be talking to you anymore. I was really surprised, but I've actually trained my brain not to think in the negative, which is really, really hard.
Well, and I think that it's all just data. And so I've been really encouraging people to, when they're putting out content, or when they're working on their writing, or they're working on their presence, like all of these things like that, that all of the feedback that you get from doing that, and then however that relates to the specific goals that you have, like it's all just data. It's all just data. And if we can actually take away the emotional reaction that we tend to have about this work, because it is, as much as people say that this business is not emotional, like, because I know that decision making is very much informed by the numbers, the process of putting yourself out there and building relationships and producing content on social media is inherently emotional, because like the personal perspective and part of yourself that you bring to it is tied to your values and why you're doing this work in the first place. So it's challenging, I think, for people to detach themselves from the feelings that are involved around producing content, or just like whatever they're working on in their business, specifically. Like, obviously you and I are very focused on that, and that's what we focus on with our clients, is how that's performing and impacting their business. But if you can detach yourself from the outcome of needing the outcome to be a particular way, and actually ask yourself why that was the outcome you got, and then make the changes from the data that you see there. Like, it's quite objective. And so for me, the idea of like positivity or negativity, or like all the feelings we have around how our business or content is performing, it's data. It's data. And if things don't feel quite right to you, that's actually just your system and perception, like pointing you towards something that needs to be solved.
I think that what you need to ask yourself is, do you need more time or do you need more clarity? Right?
I love that.
Right?
Love that.
So is this, when you're goal setting and when you're looking at things, were you clear about how you were going to get to where you needed to go? And do you need more time? Or is it the fact that you weren't clear at all? And it doesn't matter how much time you have, because there's no clarity. There's no, it's such an like ephemeral, like, oh, I want to have $1 million. Yeah, well, I want it to fall out of the sky too, but it ain't happening, right? So
Yeah.
how clear are you and on that goal that you've been setting? I know one of the goals that we set for Q1, Q1 or no, one of the goals we set for, actually, we set it in goal 1. We set it in Q1. It ended up coming to fruition in Q2, was getting the school group launched, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then one of our Q2 goals was bringing Fly on the team. And so we, but it's like, how do we get there? And it was conversations with Fly about, okay, what does this look like for you?
Right.
How is this going to work? I mean, being honest, right?
No,
like,
for real.
Like some real hard conversations about, what is it going to take? What will it look like? How can we help? And we're here. So I'm really excited about that. So again, do you need more time or do you need more clarity? And then, bringing up again the gap in the gain. We do have a tendency, brain wise, I think it's just human nature, and potentially how we were trained or how we grew up,
Sure.
to look at what we didn't accomplish versus what we did accomplish. And so I always think back to, we make lists, right? Like, what went well? what didn't go well? What did we learn from what didn't go well? And um and we create win lists and done lists, right? This is the win. This is what we got done. Start looking at those things. It's super important to look at how far you've come versus just saying, "Oh, I didn't get there." Right?
Yep.
So a lot of what a lot of what Hector and I do for that goal setting session is we also talk about our frustrations, right?
Yeah.
And it's not easy to work with your spouse. So it's not. I'm just being real here. Thankfully, Hector and I have been able to uh, work through a lot of those things prior to scaling our business. Um, there are coming from his background in management, it's very easy. I can just tell him, like, these are the things I do not do well. These are the things that you excel at. Please take these things off of my plate
Yeah.
and do them, right? And then me being super ADHD, he knows that when I am neck deep in a project, to not come and ask me a question, which seems stupid. But if you understand the ADHD
Should be taking
brain,
notes.
well, if you understand the ADHD brain and mind, right? Like when we get hyper focused on something and so into it, the minute you take us out of that focus, it takes hours to get back into it. At least for me, it does.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand that before. Thanks, TikTok. I didn't understand that before. I didn't understand, like, I would be so focused on something working and then being taken out of it. And then I'd go back to look at the computer and be like,
what? Yeah.
like, and it's so disheartening. So thankfully we understand that about each other now. And so he'll send me a message and click up when you get a chance. I need you to look at this.
Yeah.
When you get a chance, don't stop what you're doing, because he knows that I'll look at the message. I won't respond to it. I'll look at it. But if I'm super focused on doing a project, he just lets me do my thing. The other thing that we've done is that we've definitely separated what our duties are, right? Like basically what our job description is. And he handles all the back office stuff. Good morning, Commercial Ben. Thanks for joining us over on the Gram Fam. So he definitely handles all of that. He handles payroll. He handles hiring. He handles interviews. He handles teaching people how to use the systems and processes. And so that works for me because it frees up time that I don't have to do that. So now I have the ability to do what I do best, which is contact people, create content, answer emails. And by the way, email is like the worst. Okay.
Email's been a bug for me lately. That's for sure. I'll tell you that much.
Right. Like, I'm like, another email just came in. Jesus.
But I mean, I think so. Having goals, articulating what the actions are that you need to take in order to reach them, and having a clear definition of success, but then also being aware of your strengths and where you would be better served by outsourcing things. I mean, like we there is so much talk about, delegation in all business, in this business, right? And so it's like, one of the things that I have learned from being in this industry is just like the power of specialization, which is not to say that you which is not to say that you can't succeed if you're a generalist, but I don't see the kind of conversations about how much faster, how much, stronger, how much more effective that you can be if you are very concretely, specifically focused on one thing and one thing only, right? That's the whole Bob Knackel value prop, right? And then bring in the people that you need to have around you so that you can execute on that while all the other stuff that needs to happen in the business or elsewhere in the business or adjacent to it can still be moving forward as well, right? And so, that's a part of the reason why you see, I see, I have conversations with people where it's like, I could never imagine giving up my managing my social media to like a third party that's not me. And like 100%, I totally understand that. And then also, like, is that the best way to serve your business? Especially, you know, and so
Is it
there's,
the best use of your time?
yeah. And for some people it is, and it's not, you know, outsourcing, you know, or getting help with or guidance on or coaching for, you know, your social media isn't necessary. But it depends on what your goals are, what you're trying to achieve, and if you have the capacity and the ability to execute on them. That's it. And so it's like, you know, there are, I think that, you know, if I'm thinking about this idea of goal setting and you know, specific to how people are, you know, using social media and content to win their business, um, there are so many different ways that you can work this, and there's so many different approaches that you can take and so many variables that it is worth setting some intentionality around that so that you are not wasting time. Because I think the worst thing that you can do on social media is waste time. And it was the way that it was built, you know, and the way that most people interact with it is passive and not at all intentional for business, right? And so building a plan for yourself that is going to make, whether you're engaging, whether you're present, whether you're posting, whatever you're doing, like to be intentional about it, as opposed to, you know, not having a plan and seeing what happens.
Yeah, winging it is not winging it is not a plan.
I have a visitor. Hold on.
Yeah.
I think we might need to pop off, my daughter.
No worries. All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this episode where we talked about goal setting. If you have any questions, we are here. You can always DM us. We'll talk to you guys later.
All right.
Bye.